Hello, you art aficionados. My name is Luis Garcia, and that slideshow that you just saw was a brief footprint of the creative process involved in creating this work that I titled Trump. The initial set of slides that you saw in that slideshow showed the impasto technique that I applied to the foundation of this piece. And I applied it with a palette knife. Now, that's a technique that I've employed in the past. And I liked it because it gives the canvas an uneven surface that I really liked. It's a soft impasto. I call it a soft impasto. It's not a heavy impasto, where you're gonna have very lumpy surface. It's just a soft one that I really liked. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll notice that I always start out by sitting next to the composition. And the reason I do that is because I want to draw attention to the length of this piece. I want to give a visual or a better understanding to the viewer of its actual size. Now, this piece is 22 inches wide and 28 inches long. I mentioned to folks that I was going to paint Trump. And the first thing that comes out of most people's mouth is that, oh, can't wait to see what you do with his hair. How you're going to treat his hair. Well, his hair was an easy target, but for me, there was no interest in it. So I was steadfast in my decision that I wasn't going to do anything that generated interest in his hair. My concentration was going to be solely on his facial features. And once I made that determination, the internal turmoil began in my head, because now the question became, well, what do I do with his hair? I'm not going to paint him bald. So I pondered that dilemma for some time, and then I had an epiphany. I decided that with regards to his hair, I was going to paint it one color, and that eventually was extended also to the side of his face. You see, I didn't put any highlights in his hair, and this was one instance where I felt that less was more. So right now, I don't want you to go anywhere. What I'm going to do is get on the other side of the camera. I'm going to zoom in on this painting, and with a pointer, I'm going to point to items and discuss them a little further. So don't go anywhere. Furthering the discussion of the famous follicles, there were a few subtle actions which I did make use of. And right now I'm going to discuss 4 of them. The first one was I did place, and I'm going to use a laser pointer during this discussion. I did place a line of paint along the perimeter of the hair with one caveat. I broke up the outline right here above the hair, above the head. And I did that because I believe that continuity would have just drawn too much attention to the hair. Another addition was the hairline above the right forehead of Trump. within that brush stroke, I added a thin white or lighter line within the brush stroke, and I'm going to zoom in to show you. And I did that because the location of this brush stroke is, in the center of the piece, and I felt it just warranted a little more attention. But again, it's subtle. You can only notice it really on close observation, and I'm going to show you what I mean. There. So if you look within the brush stroke, you see this lighter line, and it goes pretty much the length of the brush stroke. So that was just another little, I call it, trick that I did. And another thing that I did was I added this dash. I call it a dash right here. A sharp, abrupt, angled dash right by his ear here. And you'll notice, I'm going to zoom a little closer now just so you can see it. You notice that dash is detached from the main hairline here. And you'd also notice you see a little bit of the background here. So I did that because I felt that the detachment would give a clear means to punctuate an end to Mr. Trump's locks. And the exposed background serves to give the viewer a bit of attention to the existence of this dash, and it kind of helps shove it into the foreground just a bit. Now, the fourth thing that I wanted to discuss was right there in the center. The line or the hairline that separates the head from the side of the face, I purposely made this line thinner than the rest of the hairline because I thought that widening it would, again, draw too much attention to the hair, and I had no desire to do that. I was steering clear of it. Now, I want you to Google Picasso's Gertrude Stein. That's a painting at the New York City Metropolitan Museum. When you look at her, there is a haunting beauty in her stare. Now, with Trump here, there is a powerful sense of being, a presence that cannot be ignored. There's an intensity. And that intensity, the way I helped create it was by, as you see, if you look at his eyes, his left eye is open wider than his right eye. There's also the raised eyebrow. These two features help add to the intensity of his look. It is an impressive and attractive stare down, I believe, and there's a toughness and a sternness to his look. But I was resolute in softening some of this toughness. So by design, I kept his face light. If you look at his right cheek here, the shadow, and his left cheek shadow down here, you see that they are down here, you see that they are light, as well as the shadow along his nose. I kept that light. And notice the eyebrow, the raised eyebrow. That as well, I kept it light. I felt that if I had darkened that eyebrow, it would have given a villainous effect to his look. And I was steering clear of that for sure. Take a look at alongside his face here on the left side. The contour here has no solid line at all. And I believe that's an interesting dynamic which helps bring his left eye further into the foreground. Now, this concludes the analysis of Trump. With this bit of insight I've given you, I hope to have enhanced your understanding of my work. And I encourage you to review Trump again and have a pleasing and delightful experience.